Hey friends, welcome back to Whiskey and Whit. I'm Whitney, and today's video I am sharing with you a ton of beginner-friendly projects for DIY decor for Christmas using your Cricut. A ton of you have commented on recent videos asking for more tips and tricks when it comes to Cricut, so I am so happy to deliver. A huge thank you to Cricut for partnering with me on today's video so I can share a ton of tips and tricks with you guys so you can break out your Cricut and DIY for the holidays. The first project we're gonna do is this super cute door hanger. These have been all over the place on every social media platform, but I wanted to show you how easy it is to make with your Cricut. As I go through my projects, I'm going to share with you in the bottom left-hand corner the products that I use as far as the vinyl, and I will let you know kind of best use cases for each of those. So for this particular one, I'm using removable vinyl. So this door hanger started out with a sign from Hobby Lobby. It's actually a wood pile cut out of a baseball, but it ended up being so cheap with the 40% off coupon, and the back is completely bare. I decided to take some stain to it, my favorite dark walnut, and I covered the entire back as well as the edges to give myself a really nice base to work from. Then to create the dual tone look, I took some painter's tape and some white Waverly chalk paint. I just eyeballed it. I didn't really measure where I put it. I just wanted it to be not exactly in the center. I wanted to be a little bit off. Then I gave it 2 coats, including the sides, and measured how big I wanted my decal to be. I usually measure the area and then subtract about 1 inch just to give yourself breathing room around the outside. Then it was time to get my item ready in Cricut Design Space. The file I'm using today will be linked down below for you to use for free. You can grab the download. And here I'm using the contour tool to cut out what I want to be in different colors. So you're gonna click the contour tool down on the right and select the parts of the words that you want to cut out. And then you are going to duplicate it and select the items that you want to cut out in a different color. So here it allowed me to make the Merry be cut out on red vinyl and the Christmas to be on black. Tell it what color you want the letter to be. They let you know which mat to load, which is super helpful. Now I'm using removable vinyl in black and red for this particular sign. You could definitely also use permanent vinyl, and both of those are terms for sticky vinyls. Because this sign is for inside my house, I'm not super worried that it is removable vinyl, but if it's outside, you're gonna wanna make sure you seal it, and also I would suggest using permanent vinyl. And then I applied both of my pieces to my sign. I finished off the look with 2 98-cent picks from Walmart. Their picks are amazing this year and a great price. And then I added a cute little red buffalo check bow. This ribbon is also from Walmart. And I finished off the sign by adding a ton of hot glue to the back and glued some jute twine to hang it. Because the sign is so thin, it is going to hang just fine with 1 piece of jute twine and the hot glue. If you've got a heavier sign, you're going to want to give it something more substantial. You could staple something in the back, etc. I added this to my faux cedar wreath I got from Walmart this year. It adds some really nice color to our gallery wall, and I love that you could use this for a ton of different things. Another way I love to use removable vinyl is to create a wall or mirror decal. This does not leave residue, and it makes it really easy to switch out things per season. For this particular area, I cut out "O Come Let Us Adore Him, Christ the Lord" for above our nativity set in our living room. So I loaded up the same black removable vinyl, and I cut out my free cut file that I will link for you down below. I made sure to measure my mirror, and I ended up needing it to be 24 inches, but you're going to want to measure wherever you're putting it so then that way it fits your space correctly. Then I added my transfer tape to both images, and then I went over to my mirror. I would also suggest, it's not shown here, but cleaning off your mirror before you put the stuff on and allow it to fully dry if you use Windex or something to make sure you have the best stick. I really love how it changed our plain mirror above this area to a really fun themed area. I also like that it takes the true meaning of Christmas and makes it stand out a little bit more in our house. Up next, we're going to grab some permanent vinyl, and I'm going to show you how I created this Santa Claus is Coming to Town crate. So I started with a pre-finished, pre-stained crate from Michael's just for the sake of saving time. You can use whatever container you have. You could also thrift a container, but the first step is to measure how big you need to make a stencil. So here I'm measuring, it is about 12 inches wide, and I'm gonna go ahead and subtract 2 inches, so then that way I have a pretty good border around the outside. Now, if you do go ahead and get a crate that it is pre-done and you're not staining it yourself, it may not want to take the vinyl as well. So what I like to do is go through and just rough it up with a 100, 120 grit sandpaper, and that's gonna make it a little bit rougher, so it takes your decal a lot nicer. Then I cut out my little decal exactly how I did the other ones. You just go in, upload it, decide what size it is, and cut it out. And then I went through and weeded all the little pieces. The Santa face is pretty intricate, so it took a couple minutes. And if you have large pieces that you're worried about kind of sticking to other things, you can just go ahead and cut it. I like to section off as I weed. Then I took my decal, lined it up straight, made sure that I pressed it down without any bubbles, and voila! It was so easy to put this stencil on there, and I love that I can use this for both decor and also the purpose that I wanted to. So I added some books and a little Rudolph. I'm gonna also add some PJs for a really fun Christmas Eve box for Finn. All of the books in the crate did come from Walmart, all super affordable, and the little Rudolph came from Target, so I will link it down below if you're looking for something like that for your littles. Next one, we're making this really cute tray, and this one is back to the removable vinyl, but we're actually gonna paint. So this tray I actually found in the unfinished wood area at Hobby Lobby, and I was so excited to find it. I went looking for that round for the first sign, and this was such a great find. Here's the dimensions, and the UPC, if you're looking for this, it was $15, but I used the 40% off coupon. The first step was to disassemble so I could really work with the piece of wood. It came out really easily with just a screwdriver, and then I grabbed that same dark walnut stain and stained it exactly the same way that I did that first sign. I like to use the same stain throughout my house, so then things tend to match. So then to create our stencil, we're gonna head over to Design Space. You're gonna go over to Upload and select the file. Now this particular one is not gonna be a free cut file because I purchased this off Etsy. I will link it down below. I really like to design my own, but I am also in the realm of if it's quicker to purchase it and support another creator, I will definitely do that as well. So I downloaded this file and I uploaded it into the system. Now what I want to do is create a circle stencil. So I'm going to insert a circle shape and I'm going to size it to 11.5 inches wide. That is the size of my tray. So whatever you're using, you're going to want to measure it. And then I sent it to the back and I put my image over the top of it. This allows me to get it to the right size that I want, and it also allows me to create a stencil. When both your circle and your text are selected, you're gonna go up to the top and hit Align Center. Then that way you know it is precisely in the center when it cuts. Then with both things still selected, down the right-hand corner, click Slice, and that's gonna cut it out for you so that you have your outer circle as well as your words cut out in the center. That's gonna create 3 different pieces on my canvas, and I'm gonna get rid of everything but the circle. That will leave you with your right-sized decal stencil, and then you can just go ahead and cut it out. Follow your prompts on your computer, load up your vinyl, and it will cut out for you. Then you're gonna go through and weed backwards from what we did before. So instead of taking out the outside, you're gonna take out where the letters are, and then that is gonna create a stencil. Be careful to leave in the little pieces that are the insides of S's, E's, O's, etc., or you won't have the letters you're looking for. Then I applied some transfer tape, peeled off the back, and then I applied it. Because my stencil is the size of the circle, it makes it really easy to make sure it's centered. Then I went through and gave the entire thing a thin coat of Mod Podge. Thin is key here, you don't want it getting underneath. And then I went through with some disposable makeup sponges and dabbed both the green, red, and the white paint to create the look I was going for. I ended up needing 2 coats just so then that way I had the vibrance of the colors pop off from the dark wood stain. Once I was done painting, I let it dry just a little bit, but it doesn't need to fully dry, and I peeled off my stencil. You're gonna wanna give it a little bit of oomph, but also be careful so you don't rip off the stain finish on your wood. And then my final step was to cover it with some dishwasher safe Mod Podge. I am gonna use this just as decor, but just to be safe, I wanted to make sure it was sealed in case we put a drink on it or something. Then I added it back to the frame, and here is what it looks like. I have made a lot of different trays over the years, and this has to be one of my favorites. It's a great size. This would be super cute in a kitchen or a guest room, and it has found its own little home right on our coffee table in our living room. Continuing on the stencil train, we are going to go big and create this huge Home for the Holidays sign. So here's all the information that you will need for the different cut pieces. We are doing a pre-sanded piece of plywood cut down, as well as some 1x2s for the border. If you don't have the power tools to make these cuts yourself, you could definitely cut the outside pieces with a miter box, or you could go to Lowe's, Home Depot, wherever, and have them cut it for you. Then when everything gets home, you're gonna wanna make sure you give it a good sand, and then we're gonna paint our background white to give us a good base. To create the stripes on the sign, I started by putting one piece of tape flush with the edge, then a little piece of tape as a spacer, and then another full piece to paint that stripe. Then I ended up moving these strips and kind of just eyeballed the two smaller ones. You could definitely measure it out if you're not an eyeballer, but I figured because the tapes were straight lines and I was working with a straight surface, I could just wing it. I followed the same little formula for the bottom to create 3 more lines that overlap. So for this large sign, our surface area for the decal is way larger than your Cricut mat. So I'm going to show you how you can create a stencil and kind of weave it together on top of your sign to get that large area of coverage. You're going to import your file and use the same contour trick I showed you before to get there's no place like home in one section and then for the holidays in another. So I measured my sign and decided that I needed a decal that was 17.5 inches by 17.5 inches. So I made that size of a square in Design Space so I could line up my 2 pieces, and I knew that they would be the right size. Instead of trying to guess how wide each piece needed to be, just put it on your square and it will help you figure out what size it needs to be. Then once it was all cut out on that removable vinyl, again for a stencil, I went through and weeded out the stencil and then added some transfer tape to put it onto my sign. Now I ended up making a silly mistake here and not cutting the contour underneath home. I just cut out the pieces for holiday, so I had to do some extra work. Don't do this. Definitely trim out around each word so that where they're intertwining, you have the space so that the stencil can just be stuck down. If you do it the right way, it will be a lot less complicated than how I did this. It ended up turning out just fine, but I gave myself a few extra steps. For this one, we're going to follow the same process that we did with the tray. So start with your Mod Podge and then take your makeup sponge and put your desired color onto your stencils and then go ahead and peel it off. And then because I made that silly mistake, I had to do the top and take it off. But if you do it correctly and not like how I did it for this particular one, you'll just have one big stencil and you can do it all at once. Another trick I like to do is keep painter's tape on hand. So if you have little areas like the tops of the L or the D that you think you may accidentally like overlap on your stencil, then you can definitely go through and put the tape down. So then that way you aren't going to chance like getting that all on your pretty white sign. Once you peel up your stencil, if you have any areas with some imperfections, I just went through and covered it with some white chalk paint. The last step here is to take your borders, and these I stained with my Dark Walnut by Minwax stain, and I lined everything up. The thing here is that you're going to have a 1-inch overlap for the 2 sides, so then that way you make a full frame. Then I just grabbed my nail gun, but you could use some brad nails and a hammer if you didn't have the nail gun, but I absolutely recommend this nail gun. I use it all the time. And I added the top and the bottom first because those are flush with the sign. And then I added the 2 sides. If you're looking to hang your sign, I'm just going to set it up, but you can grab little sawtooth hangers, and that's how I would recommend putting it on the wall. I absolutely love this sign. I made this for my mom. She's got an area in their house that could really use a huge sign like this, so I'm really excited to give it to her. I had to put it up in my house to style it, and I had a couple minutes where I was like, ooh, I should keep this, but then I decided it will definitely go to a good home. These large signs easily sell for $75 plus, and so you can make them for a lot cheaper with your Cricut. And finally, we are going to make some really fun pillow covers, and this time we're going to use Cricut's infusible ink. So the cool thing about this is that the pigments actually go into the fabric versus sitting on top like a heat transfer vinyl. So I went through on Design Space and sized up everything. I had one situation where I had to cut the word Griswold in half on In a World Full of Grinches Be a Griswold because it was too wide for my mat. So I went through and did the exact same process that I did for the sign to get everything in the right size to cut out. And then I used the infusible ink sheets to cut everything out. Now for these, you're gonna do the same thing that you do for heat transfer vinyl. So you're gonna put the shiny side down. As far as your machine settings, you can select custom and then tell your computer it's an infusible ink carrier sheet. And then also make sure that you mirror the image because you are going to then infuse it onto the fabric backwards. Once I got everything cut out, it was time to weed it. So this is definitely not like a vinyl material. It's more like a cardstock. So things may rip as you go, and you can pop out the inner pieces of letters a lot easier than you can vinyl. You don't have to really like scoop it up or pick it out. You just pop it off and it just comes unstuck. Now here you can tell how it looks a little bit more like paper than it does vinyl, but it doesn't look super pretty pulling it off, but once you get it off, it works great. Then I'm using my Cricut Easy Press 2 to transfer these to my items. My settings are 385 for 40 seconds, but you could definitely use an iron for this as well. Then I took out my Cricut little pillow covers, and first I used my Easy Press to just press out any of the creases in there. Then I made sure to get off any little lint pieces, and then I lined up my sheet. Now this backing is sticky, so it's nice that you can kind of stick it down. If it moves around a lot, you can use some heat resistant tape to make it stay. Definitely don't put regular tape because it will melt and it will ruin your project, but heat resistant tape will work great. Then I went through and pressed each area for the full amount, the 40 seconds, for my red pieces, and then also my 2 red and black buffalo check pieces for the last name Griswold. I absolutely love how this turned out with the buffalo check. And then to finish it off, you can either throw in a pillow you already have or an insert, or I just pulled apart some old pillows I was getting rid of anyway and used that stuffing to just stuff the pillow. I absolutely love this saying. You guys know I love Christmas vacation, and I was inspired to do this by Nicole over at The Week's Nest. She recently did a really cute Dollar Tree DIY sign, and I will link that video down below for you, but I had to put that on something. I also used some red and black buffalo check infusible ink, as well as the red again for There's No Place Like Home for the holidays, and I did my little Illinois cutout in buffalo check. Thank you so much for watching, and a huge thank you to Cricut for partnering with me on today's video. More information on the supplies I used, also my machine, and any other FAQs will all be linked down in the description below, as well as other videos that include a lot of other Cricut tips and tricks you can keep on learning. Be sure to hit the subscribe button if you haven't done so already so you don't miss any future Whiskey and Wit content, including more Christmas stuff coming your way. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye!